The snow had been falling steadily since dawn, blanketing the city of Chicago in a quiet white stillness that made everything feel a little more distant, a little more delicate. I stood at the window of my small one-bedroom apartment in Bridgeport, looking out at the frost-covered glass, my hand wrapped around a cup of lukewarm coffee I'd forgotten to finish. It was Christmas Eve, and I was alone. My name is George Whitman. I'm 68 years old. I used to be a firefighter in this city. For 30 years I ran into burning buildings while others ran out. I pulled people out of wrecked cars on icy highways. I helped carry broken bodies from fire-lit stairwells, and for every one of those 30 years I believed I was building something, a life, a home, a legacy. But somehow, I ended up here, alone on Christmas Eve, waiting for a phone call that never came. Ethan, my only son, my pride, my whole damn world after his mother died. He was a good kid, or at least I thought he was. He was sweet, thoughtful, the kind of boy who used to wake up early on Saturdays just to help me shovel the driveway. The kind of kid who cried when a bird hit the window and broke its neck. The kind who used to fall asleep on my chest watching Home Alone every Christmas. Linda would always laugh softly when she saw him curled up on me like that. She'd whisper, "Your boys are together." And I'd kiss her hand and think to myself, I've got everything I ever wanted. That was 25 years ago. Linda's been gone for 15. Cancer took her fast. 6 months from diagnosis to the final breath. Ethan was just starting college. I didn't let him drop out, no matter how much he begged. I told him to go live his life. Linda would have wanted that. I kept the house, the old 2-story in South Loop. I held on to it as long as I could. But after retirement and the medical bills, the maintenance got too much. I sold it 5 years ago and moved into this place. Small, manageable, quiet. I figured it was time to let Ethan lead his own life. And he did. He got married. Melanie, real sharp woman, ambitious, always dressed like she was headed to a photo shoot. I didn't quite get her, but Ethan loved her. And when Sophie was born, I felt something come back to life inside me. I bought a rocking chair, started knitting little pink booties I never learned to finish. I became Grandpa George. And for a while, I mattered again. But over the past year, things changed. I remember last Thanksgiving. I'd baked a pie from scratch. Linda's old apple cinnamon recipe. Took me 3 tries. Burnt one, dropped one, and the third was just right. I drove to Ethan's house in the suburbs, clutching it like it was gold. When I knocked, Melanie opened the door. Her face froze for a moment. "George, did you call ahead?" she asked. I shook my head, confused. "It's Thanksgiving." She stepped aside stiffly. "It's just, we didn't prepare for guests." Inside, Ethan gave me a quick hug and Sophie ran up to me, arms wide. That saved me from crying right there on the doormat. Dinner was awkward. They'd ordered catered food. No one touched my pie. Afterwards, Melanie said, "Maybe next time, just give us a heads up, okay? We've been doing things a bit differently lately." That was the first time I truly felt like a stranger in my son's home. And now it was Christmas Eve. I hadn't received a single call, no invitation, not even a text. So I called. The phone rang 5 times. Voicemail. I waited an hour, called again. This time, Ethan picked up. "Hey, Dad, everything okay?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Just wondering what time you wanted me over tomorrow." There was a pause, a long one. I could hear Melanie talking in the background. Finally, Ethan said, "Dad, we didn't think you'd be coming this year." I didn't understand. Why wouldn't I? "You didn't mention anything, and things have been hectic. Melanie's parents are visiting. It's a bit cramped." I stood there in silence, the phone pressed against my ear. "I see," I said softly. "You're not expecting me." Another pause. "I'm sorry, Dad. Maybe we can do something next week?" I nodded, though he couldn't see me. "Sure, Ethan. Next week." We hung up. I stared at the blank wall in front of me, then down at the little red sweater I'd bought for Sophie. Still in the bag. Price tag hanging. I smiled. I turned off the lights. I sat on my couch. And for a long while, I didn't move. The next morning, I made breakfast for myself. Eggs, toast, black coffee. I turned on the TV. Holiday parade reruns, fake cheer, canned laughter. I kept looking at my phone. Nothing. Around 2 p.m. I stood up, walked over to my small filing cabinet, opened the drawer and pulled out the mortgage agreement. I had co-signed Ethan's house loan 2 years ago when he and Melanie wanted to upgrade. He couldn't get the bank's approval alone. So I put my name down, offered my pension as collateral. Every month I sent in the payment. quietly, without fail. $1,263.42. Melanie once told me, "We're so grateful, George. Once we're stable, we'll take over." That was 18 months ago. I stared at the statement. January's payment was due in 6 days. I picked up my pen, wrote a short letter. "Dear Ethan, I wasn't expected for Christmas. I hope you won't expect me to keep paying your mortgage either. Love, Dad." I slipped the letter inside the mortgage envelope and wrote on the outside, "Payment cancelled." Then I placed it on the kitchen counter. That night, I turned off my phone, and I slept. For the first time in months, I slept without waiting for anyone. The morning after Christmas, I woke up to silence, not the peaceful kind that follows a snowfall, the kind that hums like emptiness in the bones. I sat at the table with my usual black coffee, staring at the unopened Christmas card I had bought for Sophie. It had a glittery snowman on the front and the words, "To my favourite granddaughter," written in bright, playful font. I had written inside, open quote, "Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Grandpa loves you to the stars and back. I hope Santa brings you everything you asked for. I miss your hugs. Love, Grandpa George." Close quote. Now it just sat there like a broken promise. I looked at my phone, no new messages. So I went on with my day. I made a stew, I watched an old western, and then around 4 p.m. my phone buzzed once, then again. Then it started lighting up like a fire alarm. I picked it up. 18 missed calls, all from Ethan, and a string of unread messages. Open quote, "Dad, call me. Please pick up. Dad, what did you do? Are you serious about the mortgage? Melanie is freaking out. Dad, this isn't funny." Close quote. I didn't respond. I just put the phone down, and I went out for a walk. The wind bit hard against my skin as I moved through the quiet streets of Bridgeport. The neighborhood still had string lights glowing on porches and inflatable snowmen sagging on front lawns. A little boy ran past me holding a sled, laughing as he chased his older brother. Their mother called after them, her voice warm and full of life. I stood on the corner for a moment and watched them. I used to be that father. I used to chase Ethan down snowy sidewalks, help him build crooked snowmen, teach him how to tie his scarf. I used to be wanted. I wasn't bitter. Not then, just tired. When I got home, the voicemail box was full. I scrolled through the messages. Ethan again. His voice was tight, shaky. "Dad, I didn't mean it like that. We were just overwhelmed. You should have come. Sophie was asking for you all morning. Melanie didn't know you wanted to. I don't know. Please, call me back." Then another. "You cancelled the payment? Dad, we're not ready to cover it yet. You could have told me." Then one more. "I'll come by tonight. We need to talk." I didn't reply. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. I'd spent the last 2 years helping them build a life, paying bills, babysitting, listening quietly while Melanie reminded me to knock next time, even when I was just dropping off groceries. And all it took was one sentence for everything to feel like it had never mattered. "We weren't expecting you." He showed up around 8 p.m. I saw his car pull up from the kitchen window, a silver SUV, headlights cutting through the darkness. I didn't open the door, but I knew Ethan. He wouldn't leave without trying. So after a few minutes of him ringing the bell, I finally opened it. He looked cold, disheveled, like he hadn't slept. "Dad," he started. I held the door half open. "Come in." He stepped inside and immediately glanced around like the place had changed since his last visit, which, to be fair, was 7 months ago. I walked back to my chair, sat down. He remained standing. "You cancelled the mortgage payment." I nodded once. "Dad, why? Why now?" I looked him in the eyes, "Because I'm tired of paying for a life I'm not part of." Ethan looked stunned. "That's not fair." "No," I said. "What's not fair is your daughter not knowing her grandfather was 2 blocks away from her house with a wrapped present and a Christmas card. What's not fair is you letting your wife treat me like an inconvenience. What's not fair is me sitting alone on Christmas while you pretend I don't exist." He sat down slowly. "I didn't mean to make you feel that way," he said, softer. "I thought you were okay with the arrangement." "What arrangement?" "You know, space, independence." I laughed quietly. "Independence is when both sides agree. Abandonment is when one side forgets to call." He looked down. "Melanie thought maybe this year we'd spend it just us and her parents. I didn't push back." I nodded. "That's your right. But cancelling the mortgage, it puts us in a difficult spot." I leaned forward. "Let me be very clear. I didn't do it to punish you. I did it to stop punishing myself. Every payment was a reminder I wasn't needed. Now I know for sure." Ethan was silent. Then he asked, "What do you want me to do?" "Nothing," I said. "Just remember who held your hand when you were 5 and you had nightmares. Who stayed up with you when you had the flu and Mom was in the hospital? Who taught you how to ride a bike, tie your shoes, and be a man?" He was crying now, but I wasn't. That night he left quietly. No promises, no yelling, just a sad, quiet goodbye. And for the first time I didn't wait for the phone to ring after. The Chicago snow turned from soft and glittering to heavy and grey. The sidewalks were slushy, and the wind picked up that biting edge that cuts through jackets like paper. I stayed indoors most days, reading old letters from Linda and watching reruns of shows she used to love, shows that made me feel like she was still sitting beside me. My phone stayed mostly silent, except for a couple of automated calls from the bank. They must have processed the missed payment. I expected that. What I didn't expect was a letter. It arrived on a Thursday afternoon, in a plain white envelope with no return address. I opened it slowly. It was from Melanie. Typed. No greeting. No warmth. Open quote, "George, I understand you're upset, but cancelling the mortgage was reckless and hurtful. We depended on you. Ethan may not say it, but this has created a lot of pressure in our home. He's dealing with work stress, Sophie's school fees, and now this. I'm asking you, not just as your daughter-in-law, but as a mother, to reconsider. If not for us, then for Sophie." Melanie, close quote. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in the drawer with the others, the forgotten birthday cards, the thanks for babysitting notes, the ones where Melanie signed only her name, never love or even thank you, Dad. I knew she hadn't written it for me. She'd written it to guilt me, but it was the last line that stayed with me. Open quote, "If not for us, then for Sophie." Close quote. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, the city sounds muffled by the snow outside. Somewhere down the hall, a dog barked, a radiator hissed, and I thought about Sophie. That little girl who used to run into my arms and wrap herself around my legs like a vine. Who once told her teacher at preschool, "My grandpa's my best friend. He makes grilled cheese with smiley faces." I missed her laugh. I missed her drawings. And more than anything, I missed being someone's hero. The next morning, I took the red sweater out of the bag. Still had the tag on it. I put it in a gift bag with the Christmas card. Then I got on the train to the suburbs. I didn't call ahead. I didn't plan to stay. I just needed to see her. When I reached their house, I stood across the street for nearly 10 minutes. Snow was falling again, sticking to my coat and hair. The house looked the same, 2 stories, trimmed hedges, Melanie's SUV in the driveway. I finally walked up the steps and rang the doorbell. Sophie answered. "Grandpa." She flung the door open before I could even say hello and wrapped her arms around my waist. Behind her, Melanie appeared, clearly startled. "George," she said, her voice tight. "I just came to drop something off for Sophie," I said. "Won't take long." Sophie was already digging through the gift bag, pulling out the red sweater. She held it up. "It's perfect." Melanie stepped aside reluctantly. "You could have called." "I know," I said, "but this wasn't about you." I knelt down to Sophie's level. "You doing okay, kiddo?" She nodded. "Why didn't you come for Christmas?" I looked up at Melanie, who suddenly found something interesting on the ceiling. "I got a little lost," I said, "but I'm finding my way back." She hugged me again, tighter this time. I stayed for 5 minutes, then I turned to leave. Ethan wasn't home. Melanie didn't offer me tea or ask me to stay. I didn't expect her to. But as I stepped down the porch, Melanie said quietly, "We do appreciate what you've done." I stopped, looked back, then show it, next time. Back in my apartment that night, I sat in silence. A different kind this time. A calm one that didn't ache. 2 days later, Ethan called. His voice was careful, tired. "I heard you stopped by. Sophie won't stop talking about it." "I figured she'd like the sweater," I said. "She wore it to bed." That made me smile. Then Ethan added, "I talked to the bank. We'll manage the mortgage from now on." I paused. "That's good to hear." "And Dad?" "Yeah? I miss you." It wasn't a full apology, but it was enough. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, Linda's favorite. I turned on her old music, and I danced with the air, one hand lifted like I was still holding her. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't just alone. I was free. A few weeks passed, and the new year rolled in quietly. Chicago was blanketed in deep snow again, and the wind outside howled through the buildings like an old ghost refusing to rest. The city was still recovering from the holiday rush, but my little apartment was calmer than ever. No mortgage deadlines, no unexpected calls, no waiting for a knock that never came. For the first time in a long time, I had peace. But peace doesn't always mean happiness. Sometimes it just means silence. And silence can be loud. One morning I was flipping through an old photo album, the kind that smells like old paper and fading memories. There was a picture of Ethan at 8 years old, standing proudly in front of a snowman we'd built in the front yard of our old house. Linda had taken that picture. She always caught the best moments. Ethan's first lost tooth, the time he made pancakes all by himself and nearly burned the kitchen, our trip to Starved Rock where he fell into the river and screamed bloody murder even though the water was barely waist deep. God, she would have been devastated to see us like this. I looked at the photo and my chest tightened. Somehow, after all these years, the worst part wasn't losing her. It was watching the bond we built fall apart, brick by brick. That same afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Ethan. Open quote, dinner Sunday night. Just us. No pressure. I'd like to talk. Close quote. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to say no, to protect the little bit of healing I had, but another part of me, the father in me, knew that when a son finally reaches back, you meet him halfway. So I replied, open quote, I'll be there. Close quote. Sunday evening came. I wore the same navy sweater Linda had gifted me on our last Christmas together. It had a tiny reindeer stitched at the chest, and the sleeves were a little too long now, but I didn't care. I took the bus to the suburbs again. Same route, same chill. When I arrived, Ethan opened the door himself. He looked different, older, tired, but softer too. Dad, he said, Ethan. He stepped aside. Come on in. The house was quieter than usual. No blaring TV, no Sophie running down the hall. Melanie's car wasn't in the driveway. She's at her sister's, Ethan said, as if reading my thoughts. I asked her to give us some space. We sat at the dining table. He had cooked pasta, garlic bread, a bottle of wine already opened. For the first 10 minutes, we talked like strangers who used to be close. The weather, work, traffic. Then slowly the masks slipped. Ethan sighed. You know, I told Melanie what you said, about feeling like you were paying for a life you weren't part of. I didn't say anything. She didn't take it well, he continued, but I think you were right. I raised an eyebrow. I let her create that distance. I thought I was protecting our space, our rhythm, but I didn't realize I was cutting out the person who built the foundation. I looked at him. You didn't build that house alone, he nodded. No, I didn't. Dinner went on quietly, with occasional pauses filled by soft music playing from the kitchen speaker, old jazz Linda used to love. After dessert, Ethan stood up and walked to the hallway closet. He returned with something in his hands. A framed photo of me, Linda, and baby Ethan, sitting in front of the old fireplace, her hand resting on my shoulder. I found this last week, he said. It was in the garage, covered in dust. Sophie asked who you were in the picture. I blinked. She didn't recognize me? She's 7, Dad. Kids forget when the adults stop showing up. That stung, but it was fair. I want her to know who you are, he said. Not just the man who brings presents, but the man who raised me, who held this family together. I took the frame from him, my hands trembling a little. This photo, I whispered, was taken 2 weeks before your mom got sick. He nodded. I remember. And just like that, something cracked open. We didn't hug, we didn't cry. But we sat in silence with that photo between us, and it felt like the first stone had been laid on a broken bridge. As I got ready to leave, Ethan walked me to the door. Dinner again next week? He asked. We'll see, I said. Maybe I'll cook this time. He laughed. Only if you bring that apple pie. I turned to him before stepping outside. Ethan? Yeah? Thanks for setting an extra chair at the table. He looked confused. I saw it, I said. Before I sat down, there were 3 plates. He smiled sheepishly. Old habits. No, I said. Good ones. And I walked out into the Chicago cold, my heart a little warmer than it had been in months. Winter began to fade, slowly. The sidewalks in Chicago were still slick, but you could hear water dripping from rooftops and birds returning in pairs to the telephone wires outside. The world, it seemed, was thawing, inch by inch, and in some quiet, unexplainable way so was I. Ethan started calling more often. Nothing dramatic, just simple things. "Hey, Dad, I made that soup you used to like. Sophie lost her first tooth today. She wants to show you. Can you send me the firehouse chili recipe?" It wasn't like before, when every call felt like a favor or a reminder. Now it felt like he missed me. One evening in early March, he called and asked, "You busy next Friday?" "No. Sophie's got a school event. Grandparents' Day." I paused. "You want me to come?" "No," he said. "She wants you to come." The school gym smelled like floor wax and cinnamon cookies. Folding chairs lined the edges of a makeshift stage where kids took turns singing, reading little poems, or playing off-key recorders. Sophie spotted me right away. She waved so hard her whole body wobbled. "Grandpa George," she yelled. Some parents looked over. I smiled and waved back. She sat beside me after her song, holding my hand tightly. "Grandpa," she whispered, "why didn't you come last year?" I hesitated. "Because nobody told me it was happening." She frowned. "Mom said you were too tired." I shook my head slowly. "No, sweetheart, I was just waiting to be invited." She squeezed my hand. "I'll always invite you now. Every time." After the event, Ethan took us all for ice cream. We sat at a booth by the window, just like we used to when he was a boy. Melanie was there too, polite but quieter than usual. She let me and Sophie talk without interrupting. Even laughed at one of my silly stories about the firehouse cat that used to steal lunch from rookies. As we left the ice cream shop, Ethan pulled me aside. "She's changing," he said, nodding toward Melanie. "Slowly. I think seeing Sophie with you, it reminded her what we've been missing." I didn't answer. I just clapped a hand on his shoulder. The weeks turned into months. Spring bloomed in the city like a long exhale. Dog walkers filled the parks again. Street musicians returned to the corners. Kids bounced basketballs off cracked pavement while old men played chess under budding trees. And me? I started baking again. I painted the window frame. I bought a new suit for Sophie's birthday party. I didn't feel forgotten anymore. I felt present. On Father's Day, I received a handwritten card from Ethan. Not printed, not from Sophie, from my son. Open quote, "Dad, I used to think being a father was about paying bills and keeping the house warm. But I realize now it's about being remembered, about showing up. Thank you for never giving up on me, even when I gave up on us. I love you, Ethan," close quote. I held that card in my hand for a long time. Then I placed it next to Linda's old photo on my shelf, right beside the reindeer sweater. It's funny how you can feel like a ghost in your own family. But sometimes, all it takes is one person reaching back, and suddenly you're real again. The day I cancelled that mortgage payment, I didn't do it to teach Ethan a lesson. I did it to find myself again, to stop being the man who waited on the sidelines for a door to open. I was never asking to be thanked, just remembered, just loved. And slowly, one call, one dinner, one card at a time, my place at the table returned. Not out of obligation, out of love.